Hey guys, this is Chesney Hawkes here. You are watching My Hammers 11 with the one and only Russ.
Take two. Hi everybody, it's Russ from My Hammers 11. Hope you're all safe and well. News channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell icon so you may know anytime I put new content on. As always, I'd like to thank our lovely channel sponsors Untuck It. Check them out in the description below. So you see, we've got it's another ex-hammer. As I said, we said just before we started with Scott, I think it's about our 70th ex-hammer across. We've almost been alive as a channel for a year, so it's mental. And I really, really appreciate Scott's. And I'm really excited because Scott was part of that era which I loved the most as a West Ham fan. And 62 first elite team appearances, would have been a lot more if it weren't for injury, definitely. But part of that fantastic period, which we'll talk about. How are we, Scott? How are we today?
I'm good, mate. The sun is shining. It's amazing, isn't it? How that big bright yellow thing in the sky when it's out, and there's a lot of blue around it. Everyone seems a lot happier. It shouldn't quite be the case, but it is. So yeah, all good, mate.
It's true. It's true, man. As I said, when we did that, when the first lockdown happened, it was a lot easier when it was 30 degrees and you're sitting in the garden and the paddling pool. Yeah,
I'm getting on my sort of iPad or whatever like a year ago today, and I'm sat in the back garden drinking the Corona, and it was like, wow, that was beginning of April. That's amazing.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's roasting.
It's mad.
Yeah.
And it's strange as well, because obviously I think about things that happened, like obviously we're talking about with West Ham stuff, but thinking, was that last year? Did West Ham have we started the season with Pellegrini? That seemed like so long ago. It's such a bizarre concept, and obviously it's a bit more brighter now. The dark cloud of the ESL has flown by. So that was a fun 48 hours, wasn't it?
Amazing. I mean, do you want to go there or?
We can go there if you want, Scott. I mean, yeah. I mean, everyone's going there. You might as well. I mean, it's been from a fan's perspective. Obviously, we've had lots of fans. We've done a lot of Q&As and stuff and these type of things with different fans, and everyone was like, I only heard one of my friends who were pro it, and so it was like,
yeah. Do you know what? I didn't hear one. So I didn't hear one, and yet there was some poll that came out that said that, what was it, something like 86% were against it.
Yeah.
So 14% were for it. Well, I didn't know anyone who actually said they were for it. And I do, and we don't want to get into politics, but I do worry about these polls where, who do they ask? What questions do they actually ask? And, fans of what clubs, etc. So I think we can all say unanimously that, this was very bad for English football. I think now this is a massive moment in English football, because the can is just kicked down the road. I'm sorry. All these apologies, extremely hollow. They're coming again. And if we don't get, an independent regulator to actually probably tie both hands behind these owners' backs, that they don't have the ability to do that. Hear about Florentino Perez saying, look, it's not over. It's just perhaps the idea wasn't right. The Americans realizing we don't do relegation over here. Proud of the English people as well to get involved, and it was the English clubs that backed out first, but they're coming and they're coming again, and we need to make sure this doesn't happen again. And I also think maybe there's a reset almost the other way as well, in terms of the big divide between the Premier League and EFL. Let's try and make that a little bit smaller, because it's not just about the Premier League as much as some people think it is. It's about the other 72 clubs as well, and grassroots football. So massive moment in English football. We've got away with it, and fair play not just to the fans but also the Premier League, but especially the government. I think these people wouldn't have listened to the fans, despite all the outcry. Once they get threatened by the government and by being kicked out of the Premier League, then they had to listen. But hopefully we'll sort it out.
You're true. I mean, in the poll, I can think of 6 people who said agreed with it. That's why I say.
Okay. 6. Wow, that's amazing.
I know 6. The
owners.
Henry.
Yeah.
Henry. Yeah. I see what I did there.
Yeah. I got you. I'm a little bit. Yeah, I've been doing the washing up, Russ. So I've not quite got to.
Fair enough. He's early morning. It is early morning, I'll give you that. And also, but I think, with that whole thing, it's great, it's brilliant that the fan. I'm convinced that it was never going to happen. I saw this as this sort of clever power play for the big six to get more, more sort of bang in the Champions League for their buck, and they've sort of got that, eventually, in the potentially with the new Champions League format and stuff. There's going to be more money in the Champions League. It's a bit like the Super League. It is going to be like with the elite clubs in there potentially. So that we'll see.
Yeah, but that was coming anyway. That was coming anyway with the Champions League. So they didn't need these. Want 100% power. Simple as that. And they won't rest until they get it, or they're not allowed it in a legal basis.
Good point. Yep. Right. Okay. Done. Let's talk about fun stuff. Let's talk about nostalgia, which is what we do on this channel.
Indeed. And by the way, if Spurs are in it, why can't West Ham be in it? Top six. But anyway, let's not go there. Let's move on.
Don't even go there, Scott. That's the ironic thing, isn't it? And it was funny because obviously the Spurs lot had Spurs fans had a protest, didn't they? And there was about 30 people outside, whereas Chelsea had them all lined up against the Fulham Road and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh well. Poor old Tottenham. Yes. Less said about them, the better. Right. Okay. So, Scott, 1999, January, you signed for the club from Benfica, £1 million. How did it happen? Well, it actually could have happened a year before. So I left Chelsea. My last game for Chelsea was the 97 Cup final where Robbie Di Matteo scored after 40 seconds. And that was my last game. Ended up, we went on tour to Hong Kong, Brunei and Singapore. Out there, I heard Benfica wanted me. I'm thinking, well, Benfica, it's one of the biggest clubs in Europe. I've got to go. So I went, and literally walking into the dressing room, didn't know anyone, didn't know the language. Someone had already made fun of me when I tried to say bon dia, which is good morning. I said bom dia because it's spelled differently. But I just thought, go for it. And you know what? Actually, that was the most fun pre-season I had, and my best pre-season, I think, off the back of doing well at Chelsea. And then Harry calls me. And he said, look, Scott, Dixie's sort of struggling, with his knee. There's lots of injuries. And, I've always liked you. I'd like you to come along. I said, Harry, why didn't you get in touch with me at the end of last season? Oh, well, I thought Chelsea, because I love contract, but I think then you could go abroad for nothing. But in England, you might have had to pay a fee. So, Chelsea would have wanted, money for you, etc. I said, well, Harry, we at Benfica, it went so well in that pre-season. We went to Holland, we went to Brazil, we went out, we had fun, but it was a really good place. And I think I was a novelty to them. Yeah. So, and I was trying to learn the language, but they were just speaking to me in English. That made it even harder for me. But it was really good fun. And I just said, Harry, look, I didn't know how this was going to come about. And actually, I'm loving it. And I'm in the first team and I'm playing well. I said, but, I've always liked you. I've always liked the style of football. I've always liked West Ham as a team. Please, if I do look to come back, West Ham would be one of the clubs I'd be more than interested in. So then go forwards a year and a bit, and I was living in Portugal, again on the Atlantic Ocean, a place called Cascais. It was absolutely beautiful, but I'd split up with my then ex-girlfriend, and I was kind of living on my own. And you know what? As much as the lifestyle was amazing, it was a bit train, come home. Yeah, I'm no chef, so I'd be microwave lasagna or something like that. Not enough vegetables, and it was just, I was doing it on my own. So I wouldn't have gone anywhere unless it was London. But when Harry called me, or when my agent actually called me in the January, we'd just been knocked out of the Champions League. So we just played Champions League football. If it was the format now, we would have got through to the round of 16. But because we finished second in the group, it was straight to the quarters. And we finished second, so we were knocked out. And Harry said, look, Dixie's really struggling. We need to bring someone in. We'll offer you a 4-year contract. And I just thought, yeah, great. West Ham, great club. Come back to London. Could still live around my family, which is kind of southeast. And I didn't realise at the time that West Ham had started that season really well, but were kind of slipping down the table. And I think the day I signed,
I say I wasn't technically we then, but West Ham had lost to Swansea, who were in the 4th tier in the FA Cup. Now, if my facts are wrong, I apologise. So things weren't going well. So my first game was Sheffield Wednesday at home, and we lost 4-0. We got battered. My second game was Wimbledon away, and it was 0-0. And my third game was Arsenal at home, and we got battered 4-0. I mean, you can tell me the players they had. But that particular week, I remember having such a good training week and scoring goals and doing so well. I went into that game so confident. And yet, from the end of it, I got absolutely battered. You know, there was some crosses going in behind. Listen, I wasn't any worse than anyone else, but you know, I was kind of the new guy coming in, made a few mistakes. We lost 4-0. And I remember thinking, wow, I've come from Benfica to getting battered at West Ham. But, you know, then, and Harry, to be fair to him, he took me out the next game. I actually went up to him and I said, look, you know, Harry, I appreciate, you know, I just want you to know from my point of view, even though it hasn't started too well, I'm here, I'm there, I want to play. Please put me in the team. I said, look, I just, you know, rest you for a game. And I think I came on. I think it might have been Forrest came on as a sub. And he was very clever because a couple of games later, he started against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. And we won 1-0. I played really well. It's a fantastic win. I think Kits might have got the winner. And from then on, everything just went really well. I do think first impressions last. And I do think that some West Ham fans couldn't get it out of their head, you know, about how the poor start had gone for me. You know, I was coming into a team that wasn't doing particularly well. I also think there are a lot of fans who were 100% behind me. And, you know, everyone talks about the chicken run, and all I can say is positive things about the chicken run because they were great. It was the other side that was battering me.
That's the thing. Obviously, fullbacks always have this sort of really good association with the chicken run because obviously you're there. You're like for half the game, you're literally running up and down past them. So, you're right. I mean, it wasn't a great start, but I mean, as I said, you know, the end of the culmination of that season was until this season, hopefully, the best Premier League finish we've ever had, and second best league after the 85-86 season. So, you know, and then from then on, you know, you had a really short pre-season because then you had to start the Intertoto Cup and all that stuff. So, you know, it was a real, and you know, obviously the season before, I think we'd finished 9th and 5th. And I think in the seasons you were there, I think 5th, 9th, 7th, and obviously we were relegated at the end. But, you know, it was a prolonged amount of time at West Ham. We're in the top 9, really. And I think hopefully times will are going back that way, hopefully starting the season. But as you said, Harry, that was such an exciting time. And you mentioned having fun in the training sessions and stuff like that. And the characters he brought in, I mean, we've mentioned about Trev and stuff before we started and Razor, but it was just I think for me, that was one of the reasons why I love that period so much. You know, I've doing a lot of these and talking to a lot of guys like yourselves, all the stories and like Trev and Razor and Shaka and all these players.
Monkey.
And Monks, you've had John on. You've had John on. Yeah, bless him.
Ledge, absolute ledge.
Oh, yeah. He must have been cracking up at training every day.
Do you know what? Yes. And you know, I watched. As I say, I didn't get as far as the actual team, but I watched you and Trev, and it was talking about Monkey and how he used to sort of sometimes get undressed, shall we say, and run around the training pitch, or even on night out. So we would go on nights out, and he wouldn't come out, and I'd be like, Monkey, you know, you're like the joker in the pack, you know, why are you coming out? He said, Scotty, he said, look, I can't go out because if I have a few drinks, I just go crazy. And I think there were stories of him, you know, TGI used to be a great place to sort of start and eat and drink. And, you know, apparently he'd after a couple of hours be diving across the bar, you know, beers and drinks going everywhere, people sitting there and they were giving it one of those, and he'd come out of the weed bin down a dark alley and just jump at people, and you know, it's all harmless, but you know, he said, look, I can't do that. So I said, okay, fine. But yeah, you know, you look at Razor as well, and Razor, absolute legends of a guy. I mean, what a top guy. But I think there was one time in pre-season, or we came back for pre-season, and Harry said, look, you know, I want you all by this date. If you hit this weight individually, you get an extra week off. If you don't, you start pre-season that day. So Razor came in, he was like 2 stone overweight, and he said, Harry said, right, you're doing, he said, no, I'm not, I'm going to Marbella tomorrow. And so he went to Marbella the next day, he came back 3 stone heavier, but I mean, he had a wonderful left foot. He was a fantastic guy, a great character. You know what, there were good guys there, they were big characters, but they were good guys as well. So it was, you had Righty, I mean, who else was there coming in? Rio was he was a Rolls Royce at the time, and he kind of, he was confident enough to be almost acting like a senior pro. There were just so many characters at the time that it was amazing time.
And I think also you're right. You had this sort of Carrick, and obviously coinciding with the first team success, then we had the youth team success as well. They won the FA Youth Cup and the Premier League double. People like Joe, Frank, Rio, Carrick, all these. So you had these sort of like elder statesmen, so to speak, and then you had these sort of youngsters, and it was just a really, really cool bunch of lads. And as you said, they helped each other. We've had lots of that youth team on, like Richie Garcia, who's at Perth Glory. He's coaching them the other day, and Adam Newton, and all these guys, and they spoke about like sitting in the dressing room with you guys, first teamers, and just how much development they got just by listening to your stories and John's stories and and Razor's stories. And it was a really, for me, that was the last time I thought that football was relatable to the normal fan. I think now it's more aspirational than relatable. The amount of money in the game is ridiculous. As you said, you go into TGI's for a few drinks beforehand. That wouldn't happen now, would it?
No.
There'd be in some swanky, and fair play to them because they got the money.
But it's also not just about that, Russ. Now it's about actually, people would be there in the corner, taking pictures, taking videos, trying to get any type of negative publicity. Because unfortunately, that's the world we live in at the moment. Bad news sells better than good news. Instead of, I think the lads would probably love to go to a TGI's and have fun. But you're right about relatable. And I think it's the last sort of bit of the old school, in terms of ultra professionalism, certainly living off the field. Maybe, it wasn't, they weren't the best examples. But I think once you got onto the training pitch, it was 100%. And I think the lads were like that. And people like Joey and Mickey Carrick, very different characters, Rio and Frank as well, would have learned a lot off how to not look after yourself sort of off the pitch, but how to train and how to do it 100%. Unfortunately, the game's gone a certain way. You can't blame the players for it. You can't blame them being hidden away either, because as I say, there's so much negativity that people are looking out for. But it was a great time back then, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, we've had Trevor. I said, you've seen Trevor interview and various others, and he said, and I said it to Razor as well. I was like, that sort of season you finished 5th, and Trevor went, if we didn't go out so often, didn't go out once a week, we might have won the league. We might have got into the, and it's like, but then Razor says, well, the fact is, because Harry let us have our Tuesday club or whatever it was, I wouldn't go for a drink on a Friday, Saturday, because I know I was going to go out for a drink on a Tuesday. So it was like, and
I also think, interesting, Trev's gone down the professional route now, hasn't it?
Yeah,
saying all that. But I actually do think by having that kind of team spirit, I think that you can add another 5, 6, 10 points on the pitch anyway. So, I think it's a real shame that players aren't able to do that now. I understand why they don't. I mean, I've got Harry to blame, I suppose, ultimately, but Steve Lomas to blame for. I'm coming up 20 years married this year, and Lomi. So that season we finished 5th. We beat Middlesbrough 4-0, I think, in the final game.
Yeah.
So we come in. And we're all, really amazing and biggest achievement, second best ever in West Ham's history, etc. We just beaten Middlesbrough 4-0 as well. And Harry said, "Oh, the club's arranged a pre-season game, like a charity game. I don't even think it was charity, but I think on a Tuesday. This is on a Sunday, and Steve Lomas had booked his stag do the following day. So we were literally flights at like 8 o'clock in the morning for Gatwick the following day." So we're spending half an hour arguing about, instead of really being thinking, this is brilliant, isn't it? Finishing 5th, just won 4-0, about who can go to Marbella and who has to play in this particular game. I can't even remember it was a game, Ebbsfleet or something. So in the end, it was decided that the senior pros are able to go. Frank and Rio and a few of the others played the game, which certainly ticked the boxes with their names. And out there, I met my now missus. So I always blame Lomi whenever I see him. You know,
Brilliant.
It's his fault.
Yeah. Well, Razor blames him for getting him nicked after Christmas party. But anyway, without mentioning any names, but that's what he alluded to.
Nothing to do with Razor, clearly.
Nothing to do with Razor, no. But all on Lomas, and the fact that he got a 2-mile exclusion zone from Romford Town Centre, which means he couldn't go to Chadwell Heath. So Harry had to go into the court and get it changed a little bit so he could get trained. Stuff like that. I just find it brilliant. Well, as I said, in terms of relatability, the fact where, I used to live in Loughton, and every Friday, Shackled, if he didn't have an away game, he'd be in there doing his shop at Sainsbury's, and I'd change my shifts so I'd see, so I could see Shackled, and it's just, or Kits. I once saw Kits in Woolworths in Loughton with the biggest box of pick and mix I've ever seen in my life. And
Did he have his top off?
No, he didn't have his top off.
He loves taking his top off. More in a nightclub, but he loves taking his top off. He really does. He's strong guy, Kits. But he loves. You got to ask him about that. Every time he goes to a nightclub, he ends up topless.
I've got my spies trying to get him on, so he'll be on soon.
I'll have a word. I'll text him.
Yeah, good Scott. Yeah, it's like we're hitting from different. There's certain players who we're hitting him from different angles. There's a few others who are trying to get him on. Anyway, it's all good fun. Right, let's do Hammers 11 because I'm conscious of your time. I don't want to take up as much as too much time. So obviously, everyone we get on the channel, apart from Harry, Harry backed out putting an 11 together because he started talking about Bobby Ferguson in the 60s and he had a business meet. And Harry, he's just always got 100 things on it. And a few others. Nigel Winterburn, I don't think gave an 11. I think Ian Bishop didn't give one, but everyone else has given one. And the idea is you put together an 11 of the players you played with at your time at West Ham. So obviously, 4 or 5 years really at West, or 4 years really at West Ham. And so we try and keep it to 4-4-2. You can put yourself in as well, Scott. Kick those appearances up. More than happy with that. I'm not bothered.
Yeah, I could do with a few more appearances to my name.
Well, that's the trouble. As I said, I think easily, the way you establish yourself from an early age into the in the time at West Ham into the first team, without the injuries, you'd have been over 100 appearances easily at West Ham. Easily.
Yeah. I'd like to think so. I had that knee operation. I was out for a season, which is a real shame. By then, and I do feel that after that initial bad start, I actually played some of the best football of my career. And I think if you analyse the games, then people will agree with that. But then Glenn took over. Nigel was doing so well, which is why I'm going to put Nige in instead of me.
All right, we'll come to that. We'll come to it. Don't worry.
Yeah, no problem.
But you're right. Technically, you played another 3 managers as well, really, because obviously, late Rhoda was in, and obviously then Brooking towards the end, and then obviously got released and went to Rotherham.
Yes, I was kind of out the squad by then. I'd just been biffed, simple as that, which is a shame because, I felt like I didn't really play a part in that final season. And it was a real shame. But, Glenn, what I would say is, 1, fantastic guy, but 2, he always respected me as a person. And I think the career I'd had beforehand as well. So even though I had, sort of would go in sometimes and say, look, why aren't I playing? When I did play, I did well. And, I totally understand where Nigel's coming from. He was older than me and he felt he needed to play. And I think Glenn just felt that he just went with Nige, but he always treated me with respect. But that last season, I hardly played a game. So I feel like disappointed. I didn't get involved in that really in that final season.
Yeah. And obviously, and I think it's just one of those things, and it's a very West Ham thing, as you said. The previous 4 seasons we'd finished in the top 9, and then just that season, it's just one of those weird things. Because we finished 7th the previous season, which was our 2nd highest ever. Just West Ham, We've had had JMO on, we've had various others from that period as well, who just said, don't know. Literally don't know what happened that season. We just didn't get a win for the first 20 or so. Right, okay, starting goal. Who's in goal then, Scott, for the
okay, let me get my sheet.
Oh, he's got a sheet.
So, well,
ever the professional.
I started making a few notes the other day, and then kids jump in and you realise that actually, no, I've got no chance of doing this. But
they're at school, so it's okay.
Exactly. Shaka obviously was a top guy. I mean, one of the most laid back people I've ever met in my life. You know, you're thinking he's a goalkeeper. Well, you've got to be a bit crazy really to be a goalkeeper, haven't you? So he'd be right up there. But I think I'd have to give it to David James. You know, he was, you know, England's number one, played in the World Cup, and you know, he was a Marnie model back in the day, wasn't he? And you just look at him, he was like 6'4", not an ounce of fat on him, so jealous. But you know, one thing I would say as well is that he would make his mistakes, but you knew what he was going to do as a goalkeeper, as a defender. You knew he would come out, and therefore, okay, great, that's what you want, a positive goalkeeper. You know, his mindset very, very strong as well. So you know, you can see he had the package. You know, natural talent, great striker with the ball, you know, wonderful striker with the ball. So yeah, I'd put him in.
And I mean, but what I like about him, he's when we've had JMO on, he was very honest. He went, yeah, sometimes I buggered up, sometimes I flapped for a ball. He said, but it wasn't intentional. And he's like, you know, he was so honest and open about everything. It was great. And then he did his 11, and he went up front. He'd put Defoe and Kanoute, I think, up front, and then the next day he was recording something for the club, and I know some of the people he was working with, and they were talking about this interview, and he was like this. Can't believe I didn't put Paolo Di Canio in. I completely forgot about Paolo Di Canio, and he was getting every ridge. Anyway, it's just a little precursor in case you don't. But he was like, I can't believe I forgot Paolo.
He's in. We'll get on to him, don't worry. Yeah.
Right, okay. So left back, we're going to put Nigel in, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, technically I played with Dixie, and I think you'd have to say Dixie was, you know, if you put an all-time West Ham 11,
of course,
he would be there. I mean, what a play! He had absolutely everything, and he epitomised everything that West Ham, you know, is about. And it was a bit like following Alex Ferguson, to be honest with you, following him. But you know, Nige was incredible. So when I was at Charlton, Arsenal came in for me, and you know, I realised I had to leave Charlton to play in the Premier League, and met with George Graham. And he said, look, you're going to have to wait 18 months probably, because that's what Nigel did with Kenny. So that's, you know, and I saw Colin Pates, who had gone from Charlton to Arsenal and be sort of nowhere. And I just thought, I can't be stuck in the reserves. So I went to Chelsea. Certainly don't regret my decision. So to think that Nigel was established back then, and then he came to West Ham, and he must have been 37, 38.
Something like, yeah.
And yet he was just, you know, he wouldn't be at the front in any way, of course, in terms of running. But in terms of tackling, you know, go on these runs off the ball where you think, Nigel, what are you doing? Save your energy. Like 3 players playing it around him. And yet he'd come and win the ball every time. He was an absolutely superb defender. He really was. So, look, I'm sure in that time he played more games than me. So I'm gonna put him as the left back.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Right, okay, put Nigel left back. Let's go right back then. Who's going to be right back then?
So this was a tough one, and I actually watched the only full show I watched, Russ, was yours, and I get you with Schemmel. You know, Seb was amazing. You know, there's Potsy there as well, who was sort of, you know, towards the end of his career, who was a fantastic servant for West Ham. What a fantastic guy as well, and great to see him. I saw him a few months ago. And I know you said in your thing about 4-4-2, which I've tried to do a 4-4-2 here, even though that's not my one preferred formation, and 2, I'd probably do a different formation for this, but I've tried to do it 4-4-2.
Good man.
And please tell me as I go if I've missed out on anyone, because my memory's not always the best. But I think I'd probably put Seb in, you know, because he had this. He had this barrel chest. I mean, if he took his top off, he'd be no Armani model. Let me tell you, we're talking about JMO being one. He wouldn't be. But it must have just been to fill up his lungs, you know, his lungs, his lung capacity, because he used to run up and down. And Trevor was another one. When we used to play wing back, you know, I always used to sort of joke with him, and I still do now, that I hated him because Trevor's one of my best mates, because he could just do it for 90 minutes, and then he could probably do another 90 minutes. Whereas by the time I went up, you attack their fullback, defended against their winger, I'm like breathing out my backside for 10 minutes. I'm going to play two-touch rather than show what I can do. But we'll keep it 4-4-2. Seb was incredible. You know, really underrated player. And
Yep.
but anyone who watched him, and I get why you put him in your side, because he was and his mentality, he was a bit of a nutter. In a way, a bit like Thomas Repka was. And just a little story on Thomas. So he used to come in, and he'd either be up there or down there in terms of his performances at that particular time. So, and I was like languages. I've got a Colombian wife now. I went to Portugal. I like French at school, hated German, but still did it. So, but even just like, hello, how are you? That type of thing, I tried to learn. So I'd say to Thomas, how do you say in Czech, how are you? He'd say, jak si máš. So I was like, every morning I'd say, Thomas, jak si máš. And he'd either say, dobre, which is good, or no hovno. And I said, what's no hovno? He said, shit.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, 6 times out of the 7 we were in the week, jak si máš, no hovno. And he was absolutely brilliant. And he was someone who could play that right back position as well.
Yeah, he could. Yeah.
But I probably would put Seb in there because, as I say, get up and down. Admire anyone. I think from a physical point of view, more now than ever. It used to be when I first started playing back in the 80s, can he play and then can he run? Now it's if you can't run, you haven't even almost got a chance of whether you can play or not. But Seb could do both. He was a really, really good player.
Yeah, and I love the story of him now that he lives in Luxembourg, and he owns a restaurant called Upton Park.
Does he?
Yeah, we're trying to get him on.
Brilliant.
It'd be funny. But yeah, that's what I love, and just all those stories. Yeah, hopefully we're going to get Thomas on soon as well. Which will be hilarious. Which should be absolutely hilarious. He scares. He does scare me. I mean, I know when we go on Insta and use the DM message, we get DMs with Thomas's ones. I always get really nervous, and he's like in the Czech Republic, but he's still like he's just got this.
He's a million miles away, Russ. He won't get.
I know.
But he's still got those eyes, isn't he?
He's still got those eyes. That's like Monks' eyes. Monks, although he's calmed down a lot. When we started talking, this little glint in his eye, and then he just had this sort of verbal diarrhea, and like story after story. And I got naked here, I did this, and yeah, I love it, man. Right, centre halves. Who's your first centre half then, Scott?
It's got to be Rio, isn't it? I came to the club and they told me about Rio. I mean, I obviously knew about him already. I think I don't think I've ever seen a teenager that was clearly world class before. Yeah, sure. And I don't think I have since firsthand in training. And he was just unbelievable. I mean, he was liable for a wreck at that time, and that was something that he needed to learn. And obviously he did as his career went on. We had a thing in training on a Thursday where defenders used to hate it. It was like an attacker against a defender 1-on-1, and then a goalkeeper behind the defender. So Harry passed the attack of the ball. They'd have 10 yards to pick up speed. We'd have to come from a different angle and somehow try and stop them. So sometimes, especially the fast player, already picked up speed, just knocked the ball past us, and they've already got that momentum. Nobody could get past Rio, and it was unbelievable. And I remember one time, Kits got past him, then tried to shoot. It was a feeble shot and it was easily saved by Xhaka. But he's running up and down. Yeah, I got past you. And it's like, that's how good Rio was. Even in training, if you could get past him, then you've done something special. And obviously on the ball, superb. And I think his career speaks for itself, doesn't it? And great to see him doing so well. And he only lives around the corner for me as well. He moved back down into the same estate I lived in. I've since moved out, but he's local. Oh, good. Now, and I mean, as you said, his career speaks for itself, doesn't it? And we've had, as I said, similar, like, we've had even guys like Ian Foyer. We had Ian Foyer on, the American reserve goalkeeper for us, and he speaks highly of Rio. And they used to play hip hop around Waltham Abbey together in his big SUVs. I love it. It's amazing stories about Rio and stuff. And there's a good, he's just done a really good podcast with Eddie Hearn on BBC Sounds, talking about the old days and talking about going to faces and things like that. And how they don't, a bit what we were saying now about the whole TGIs. It's almost exactly the same story, to be honest. But top boy Rio. Right. Okay. We'll put Rio in. Who's he going to partner them in that centre back position? Okay. Well, look, I've got a few people written down here. Igor Stimac, fantastic. The best posture I've ever seen from a man in my life. He just walked around like a peacock and had that presence about him. Thomas obviously was good. Ian Pearce, I know you mentioned him, didn't you? Oh, I love him. Lovely guy. I mean, I got on really well with him. We were very good mates, and very underrated. And as you said in your one as well, that you got a problem, stick him up front.
Yeah,
And there was a time where he was doing so well that I think he might even have started a few games up front. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
but really, again, underrated, strong, quick. Knew what he could and couldn't do with the ball. So I kind of wanted to give it to him, but I don't know whether I'm a bit of starlight here, but Stuart Pearce. I mean, Stuart Pearce. I mean, he played obviously left side of the three when I was playing. But this is a guy who, I mean, you can tell me, how old was he when he won Hammers Player of the Year? Was it 14 something?
No, I think he was roughly.
39?
He must have been 39 something. I mean, he was. We had this sort of, as you said, you mentioned Nigel, and we had Piercy in on that left side as well. Eventually, we had Chrissy Powell in for a while as well. He's obviously back at Spurs. Rufus. So we had lovely bloke, and I think Piercy sort of epitomised, as you said, one Hammer of the Year. He was amazing, absolutely amazing player. Very similar to Nigel Winterburn, sort of kept himself fit and just experience. You can't get away with that now, I think, in football. We had it with Zabaleta. We had a slightly towards the end of his career fullback, and you've got the experience, but the pace of the game is such ferocious now that I just think they get shown up a little bit now. But yeah, I loved it, and obviously Piercy's back in, obviously still at the club. Again doing great guns with us. So
and just again, he had that aura in terms of this has got to, whatever you do, you've got to do it 100%. You've got to do it spot on. He didn't say too much, but he talk about Thomas with the eyes. Piercy had the look as well.
Yeah.
Obviously I was a senior pro, but he's someone who I looked up to coming through the ranks at Charlton. He was the England left back, and obviously the 90 World Cup and 96 and etc. etc. So, just to say that I played with him was amazing, and a really nice guy. I had him on when I was working at Sky a year or so ago. He came on one of the shows, and brilliant. Just loved working with him.
Just talks so well about the game, doesn't he? I just think there's certain players who still do. Obviously, Rio talks very well about the game, and Jamo as well. He does a lot of the sort of the foreign commentary shows and stuff as well. He obviously speaks very well. And I love Stuart Pearce. It was great, and it's great to. I mean, and you talk about that sort of that team bond, and I can see a lot of maybe slightly watered down in modern compared to that era, but the team now at West Ham, there is a real bond. Like, obviously, I'm still at the game, so I get to see things that a lot of people don't see. And an hour and a half before the game, the team go for a walk around the pitch in their tracksuits with their masks on, just joking, jostling each other. With Davies there, Piercy's there, Kevin's there, and I've never seen that before. It's little things like that, and you see there's a real sense of togetherness, where you said the team spirit could give you 5 or 6 points. That's even more so now with no fans at the stadium. So, and I definitely think having Piercy in there and obviously Moisey sort of, and Alan Irvine, quite old school. He's really sort of meant a really tight unit, which is great. Right, okie doke. There we go. Let's go midfield. Let's go right wing. I could probably guess the right wing, but we'll see who's going to be the right wing.
Go on, tell me who I've got in right wing.
Dimitrescu. No, I can't think of anyone. I'm going to say Mr. Sinclair.
It's got to be, isn't it? I mean, legend as a guy as well as a player. And I knew Trev in the under-21s actually. I think he's a little bit younger than me, but he was good enough to be involved just a couple of occasions. Sorry, I've just got my dogs coming up to me.
That's all right.
So when I went to West Ham, it was almost like we'd been teammates before, even though we hadn't really, didn't know each other that well, but we just clicked. And as a guy, I can't speak highly enough of him. He's just a great energy to be around. He's fantastic. As I know he's already said as well, he could get himself in a bit of trouble. And we know that can happen. He's a character. But for me, I think he's an absolutely fantastic guy. And even though we don't speak together a lot, he's one of those where I still consider him a very good friend and not just a former teammate. So, but in terms of his ability, I mean, look, as I've already said, he used to really annoy me. The fact he could get up and down, get up and down, get up and down in that wing back position. You know, he was good enough, skillful enough to, and I think he underplays himself when he said that he didn't have a lot of skill. He did. He also had a Kenny Dalglish backside that no one could get around. And he was one of those as well where you try to kick him, that's the worst thing you can do, because you're only going to make him angry, and you don't want to make him angry. You know, he will come at you again and again and again. So he had the mentality, he had the physicality, even though he's not the tallest player. He had the skill, he had the aerobic ability, and without a doubt. And there were some fantastic names. And again, Russ, tell me if I've missed some out here, let me know. But whatever happens, Trev has to be in my team.
Yeah, no, he has to be. No, yes, yeah, I mean, he's in my team as well. You know.
Yeah, and the story of how he got sort of to the World Cup, and he came back, didn't he? And in sort of pre-training camp, and then he got called late. I think it might have been Danny Murphy who dropped out, and then he became not just coming off the bench. He became a regular, and actually in that World Cup, one of our best players. So he's always got that to look back on, that he played in the World Cup, but he was also an integral member of that. So absolutely amazing.
And also playing in an unnatural position as well. You know, he played on the lefts, and he's always been known as a right-sided player. And so again, nowadays, obviously we had an issue with Sebastien Schemmel, who was like, he didn't fit the system we played, but Trev would play anywhere. And he played right back. He played, I think he started up front for us. He scored 2 in his debut. And so, I love players who can do that. And and just as you said, a lovely bloke. He's helped us out a few things on the channel and stuff. And very, very, very thankful for the fact that we've got to know each other, which is lovely. It's bizarre. As I say, this whole thing is just very strange to me. Like talking to people like yourselves, but anyway, we get through it. We'll get by it.
Well, this is where we're all a bit old school still, Russ. We do actually talk to people, whereas
exactly, face to face, not as much as we can, not on the old Twitter. I totally agree. Right, okay. We'll put Trevor on the left. Who's going to on the right? Who's going to go on the left then? Who's on the other side?
So he's not left winger, but again, I've got to put him in, and it's Joey Cole.
Yeah.
So Joey came through the ranks. Obviously, when I first signed for West Ham, he was on the verge of the first team. This wonder kid. I can't imagine how much pressure there would have been on him. Because he was this world-class player before he became world-class, before he even got into the West Ham team. But I think he just loved football so much. And one of the biggest compliments I can give him is not necessarily for his talent, because his talent was there for everyone to see, and he was just amazing. Actually, I can add to it, I suppose. Going forward, absolutely amazing. Technical, I mean, it's a gift. You're born with that. It's obviously you try and hone your talents, but there were most people just cannot do, however much you practice, the type of things that he could do. But actually, I think he became captain in their final season, where we went down, and that was a really good decision. I'm obviously assuming it was from Glenn, because he would track back, he would work hard, he would get his foot in, he loved the tackle, and he was 100%. For me, almost the ultimate player, because he had everything he'd do going forwards, but then most talented players like that, I don't want to go back, or they'll do it, and he loved the tackle, let me tell you, as much as he loved to go forward. So, absolute, for me, should be a West Ham legend. To think he was so young, a good lad, confident lad. And again, I'm really pleased to see him doing so well in the media as well, because he's obviously been out for a few years, but he's come in. I don't think there's anyone better on the touchscreen at the moment. I think there's anyone else out there. But going forwards, going back as well. I've got to put Joey in your 4-4-2 formation.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll make this like a redknapp here. We'll end up probably going to 3 at the back anyway. This is how it lines up. But this is how BBC would put it up, and it all completely changes. Right. All right. We'll put Joey on the left. I totally agree with everything you said about Joey. Top guy. Hasn't got very good internet. That's the only issue with Joe. No.
Wow. That's
why we haven't. That's why he hasn't been on.
Take him out of the team. Drop him.
I know he's out. And Sinclair doesn't know how to. Trevor doesn't know how to use his phone. He's out as well. So anyway, there'll be no one left by the end. Right, midfield, central midfield. Who's your first one?
So I mean, we've mentioned Monkey. I'm not going to put Monkey in, but let me tell you, it took me 3 months. I mean, we talked about him off the field and a fantastic character and a really good guy. And I know he's toned it down a lot now and, become a born again Christian. But it took me 3 months to realise what was his favoured foot. I mean, he was that good, two-footed, left foot, right foot. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, he's pinging the ball out there with his left foot, but he's pinging the ball out there with his right foot. And both of them are going exactly where they need to go. Love to tackle as well, perhaps a bit too much. But again, that's probably why West Ham fans loved him even more. But, could get his foot in. So he would be on the bench for me. I think when you listen to the two players, I think you can probably understand why these two are in. I'll start off with Mickey Carrick. Holding midfielder. He's come through the ranks. And where Joey had all the kind of hysteria around him, Mickey didn't. But knowing Mickey like I do, and even, again, great to see him doing so well. And, obviously United having some ups and downs over the last few years, but he would have learned a lot. Be interesting to see if he ever wants to become a manager. I don't know whether he said he wants to or not, but I mean, the football knowledge of this guy and better players than me have said they always have Mickey Carrick in their team because you give him the ball. Doesn't matter if he's got one or two people around him. He can keep it and he can start attacks. Because he wasn't this kind of, David Batty or Claude Makelele getting stuck in or whatever. People don't necessarily think of him as a holding midfielder in terms of defensively. But he was such a good reader of the game. He could intercept. He'd be in the right place or he'd know where the passes are coming. So he didn't need to be on, getting his shorts dirty all the time. But technically, and he improved even more as he went on, first of all, to Spurs and then on to Man U. He was just this kid, and he had this kind of the mentality, the temperament that it didn't matter what game it was, he was going to do exactly the same. And that's actually a really difficult thing to do, especially as the higher you go, to believe in your technique and to have that confidence to play in front of 60, 70,000 Champions League games and semi-finals, finals, etc. Absolutely amazing. So to think that, to say that I played with him is absolutely amazing. And yet, if you met him again next week, Scotty, how you going? Mickey, how you going? Do you want a beer? He'd be just absolutely level-headed guy. Incredible.
Amazing. And I think something about Michael Carrick, I call him the final piece of the puzzle in that you might have 1,000-piece puzzle. I've just done one for my daughter. It took me ages. And that final piece, if you haven't got it, it doesn't complete the picture. And he, every time he's moved from another club, he's taken that piece with him. And so we never replaced him at West Ham. Spurs never replaced him. Man United didn't replace him. And it's only when he's gone you realise actually he completes the team. And it's great seeing him. And you mentioned obviously people like Joe, people like Pearce, people you mentioned in here. Most of them have gone into either analysts, are still in the game, whether it is, as you said, Mickey Carrick. Probably, I imagine your other midfielder was a we'll say who's your other midfielder for? I sort of don't want to just put
again, I'm sure you could get this one, but it's Frank. So I look at him now and back then, and I don't think I can say anything different that people have already said about him. I wanted to try and do a little bit of extra training, fast feet stuff or whatever. He was already there doing it. In terms of the shooting, he was there with the shooting. And, like they say about Paul Scholes, Frank Lampard, David Beckham, it doesn't just come, you're not born with that kind of striking the ball. That has to come with practice.
Yeah.
So, he had all that. And I must admit, I didn't get it. That he was getting the stick at the time. I think, you can tell me more, but maybe Bish, who wasn't there when I joined, but Monkey as well was a very popular player, popular person. They were on the bench for this kid that was coming through, that was, Frank's boy and Harry's nephew. But for me, that was like, let's embrace it even more. He is West Ham because of his family. He's even more West Ham, and let's give him even more time if things aren't going right. So I think looking back, maybe maybe not. Maybe some West Ham fans will regret the kind of stick they gave him. But you know, I think he said that it's kind of half made him the player he was. He already
That's
had
what I
that
mean,
kind
yeah.
of steel and mentality.
Mm.
But taking it to another level. I knew he would be a very good Premier League footballer. I didn't know that he would become a world-class world-class player, and at that particular time, for a good few seasons, the best goal-scoring central midfielder in world football.
Yeah,
you know,
so
he got everything out of himself, and you know, I still feel that he was harshly dealt with at Chelsea as a manager.
Yeah.
You know, I think there could certainly be arguments that would Chelsea be where they are in terms of Champions League, maybe even league, maybe not. But this was the chance for the club to really go along with Frank and his education and give him 5 or 6 years to be that longevity of a manager. But it shows that, you know, Roman Abramovich, and you can't give him stick for it. He wins trophies doing it this way.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah,
So I think, you know, interesting to see where he goes next. But you could see it even as a youngster. I think he scored a 25-yarder in one of the Intertoto games, and he just had that confidence. He had that steel, and I think it was the incident. What game was it? Was it Bradford where him and Paolo were fighting over the? I mean, that was some game anyway, wasn't it? But Stevie Bywater looking at the screen as they're kicking off, and they're trying to shoot straight away.
Oh dear, We've had Stevie on. He's a bag. He's as crazy as a bag of spanners, old Stevie's. But yeah,
he's a great
and you're right.
That
That game epitomised. That's why I loved West Ham that era. That game, something like that would happen every game, but that game was just like this melting pot of everything. And you're right about Frank. I think he was hard. I don't think, for me, I think he was always viewed by Abramovich as a stopgap, because they had the transfer embargo. They weren't going to buy anyone. You're not going to get Thomas Tuchel. You're not going to get Allegri. Here's Chelsea. You can't buy anyone. Well, I'm not joining yet. You know, it's like, I always thought that was the plan. But I mean, I agree.
Right.
I think also you're right. I think, you know, the stick he got from some fans made him, and you know, there's no denying the player he became. And as you said, it grew. And everyone we've interviewed, like Monks, all that lot, you know, it's Trev, yourself. Always extra training, and it paid off, man. It paid off, you know what I mean? So, right, Frank's in up front. Who are we gonna have up front?
So, I mean, if you're just talking about names, so I've written down 6 people here, and again, I've probably forgot a lot of people. You know, you got, and these first 2, I'm not going to put in certainly for West Ham, but big names and been really good players in their time. Davor Suker.
Yeah,
you know,
Dave,
as Monk, Dave, and I heard the story about, you know, you mentioned to Trev about money lost. Dave, where's my money? Monkey were like, Dave, where's my money? But you could see the presence he had. You know, his legs had gone by then, but just his touch and his finishing, brilliant. TT was just, you know, he was probably about 3 stone overweight when he was at West Ham. But again, he could make you look silly in training as well. You know, you could see why he was a great player in his time. You had Jermaine Defoe coming through the ranks, and you know, what a player he's been since he's gone to be as well. Fantastic finisher. You know, his hero was Ian Wright. So, you know, Wrighty he wasn't my room partner normally, but he was my room partner in Marbella when I met the missus. So he was great with me, and sort of like, oh, look, Righty, I really like this girl, and would you mind just playing tennis with us? And, you know, because she had a friend, and so he was like, yeah, sure. So fantastic guy, and obviously his career speaks for itself as well.
Yeah.
But I think the 2 I've got to put in, I'll start with Freddie, and you know, Freddie was. Again, he was another one, a bit like J-Mo. He was like, I don't know his height. It was like 6'2", 6'3", not an ounce of fat on him. He'd be sitting in lunch, and you know, he'd be eating like some cream and everything, and I'm trying to sort of have a little bit of olive oil, and I'm like, Freddie, how do you eat all that rubbish and still look like that? But he was someone who, again, he was a Rolls Royce. Again, there's genetics.
Yeah.
It's genetics. You know, you can make the most out of yourself. But if it's not there in the first place, and it was for him, you know, tall, good in the air, technically excellent. Don't try and, you know, go back to battle with him, ragdoll him because he'll ragdoll you. You know, he'd absolutely put you on the floor. Again, don't get him angry. He just had absolutely everything, you know, and I think actually he could have been even better.
I agree.
But I think sometimes people reach their potential, whatever that potential is. People say, well, he could have done more, well, he didn't. But I think in terms of the attributes he had, how good he was, and he went on to Spurs and probably be even better as well. And I think he went to Sevilla, wasn't it, where he was an absolute legend in Spanish football. I mean, a real legend. So I think that's where he was probably at his best. But we had him. I don't know how young he was, but he was still a young guy. He just had everything. You know, if you're under pressure, you stick the ball up to him, and even if it's not the best of balls, you know, he'd bring it down. He'd have a centre half off him. And I remember one time Sylvain Distin for Man City, and he was a fantastic central defender, and you know, great athlete as well. He's running ragged, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, I'm having to be clever. At the start of my career, you know, you're looking at the tunnel alongside, and the wingers used to be quite sort of small and going quick. And then by the end of the career, you know, you sort of stand in the tunnel and body language, and you know, try to give it one of those, and you'd look across and you'd look up, and right, that's my winger. He's 6'2". But you know, Freddie was not that he was a winger, but you know, he just had absolutely everything, and he was an epitome of the way the football was going in terms of he's still got the football skills, but he's also got the physicality to go with it as well.
Yeah, the pace. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I always remember because his home debut was that game, that Wimbledon game where Paolo scored that goal. You know, and I remember when he first started, I was like, right, this is it. Because obviously Henry was at his pomp then, wasn't he? Really? And I was thinking, this is our Henry, because he was like, he had everything, and it was one of those annoying things because, as you said, I think they could have been a stronger player. And I think JMO said it. He depended what side of the bed he woke up, whether he was going to be a great have a great game or not a great game. And he says, unfortunately, there's more than players in the game now, and I love.
But I think he developed as his career went on. I think it just the penny sank, and people need a bit of time to develop, don't they?
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Okay. So, Kanoute. So, who's going to be the last player of the? I don't know.
I can't think of anyone, Russ. I can't think of anyone that stands out, to be honest. Help me out here.
We could put Dave in. You could put him back in. Florian Radachoi.
He wasn't there.
Marco Boogers. They wasn't there.
He wasn't there either. No. But look, I mean, Paolo was just unbelievable, and he joined round about the same time as that I did as well. And I mean, where do you go with this? Because, you know, I remember when Dimitri Payet had that unbelievable season, and for that season he probably was as good as anything that Paolo did. But when there was comparisons, I was like, don't compare him to Paolo until he's done at least 3 of those seasons, of which he really struggled to do, didn't he, Dimi? Paolo was just, I mean, ultra confident. You know, he looked a million as well. I'm sure I've heard him say somewhere where, you know, he was quite fat as a kid, and you know, looking at him, you're thinking, well, he's got nothing on him. So he you know, and looks great, really lean, 6-pack. But he wasn't the quickest. He wasn't like really quick, but he was someone who you knew if he had the ball at his feet, sort of on the D. There was a defender and a goalkeeper to beat. 10 seconds later, the defender would be in his arse, the goalkeeper would be in his arse, and he'd be rolling the ball in the back of the net because he just had this ability to shape to shoot or shape to pass and come inside and come the other way. And you just couldn't help but go with it. You know, crazy guy in many ways, but, you know, it was quite funny when the Sun came out with that sort of, they found out that he hardly played away and just played in the home games. And we didn't realise until the Sun sort of came out with it. But, you know, for me, I would protect Paolo till the day I die because he was a good guy. Look, you know, was he, should we say, ultra confident? Yes. Could people have called him bordering on arrogance? Yes. But it wasn't. I played with a lot of players who, you know, at Chelsea, who were arrogant, but because they knew they were good players. They were good people. And just because they knew they were good. And Paolo was that. You know, I put him in the top 3 of best players I ever played with, because, as I say, and I always admired players as well who weren't lightning, so they didn't rely on something that God gave them. Although I'm just talking about God-given talent with Joey, it was a God-given talent with Paolo as well in terms of the skill that he had. He was governor. He was the number one. You look at all those players in that team, and the other players went on to, you know, be even better than what they were when I played with them. But Paolo was the governor. He was the number one. He was our talisman. He was the guy that if we were struggling, we looked towards. And I remember, I think we played United. We're 3-0 down after 20 minutes. I'm thinking Upton Park. I'm thinking, oh my God, the fans are going to batter us here. And we came back really well into the game, but it was led by Paolo, and we got to 3-2. And I think I played a ball into him, and for some reason he missed it to make it 3-3. And then I think we lost, I don't know, 4-2 or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
But we got cheered off by the fans because we gave it absolutely everything. But he was the one who would start the fight back. I think it was another game against Leeds where I think Lomi and Wrighty both got sent off as well, and Wrighty ended up kicking the referee's door down. I think we lost 5-1, but it was just one of those where, and maybe I'm not necessarily talking about Paolo here, but it's more about the fans, where we were 100% giving it our all. The fans could take us losing. It was about, and people say to me about the West Ham way. Oh, you know, there's no West Ham way. Well, and you tell me where there isn't the one. I feel there is a West Ham way. I feel the West Ham way is you have talent, you have hard work, you give it a go, you win 4-3, you lose 3-2, and the fans will go home pretty happy. That for me is the West Ham way. And I've not played at another club where you can say that's the Benfica way, that's the Chelsea way, that's the Charlton way, it's the Rotherham way, whatever. You know, for me, that is the West Ham way. But just going back to Paolo, I mean, just incredible. But you know, look, he had an ego. Both Harry and Glenn had to look after that ego. But when someone's that good, and we didn't really like it at the time, we was like, oh, you're treating him different. We can see now that you kind of have to treat geniuses like him different. And he was a genius, definitely.
Yeah, he was. He was an absolute genius. And I totally agree what you mean about the West Ham way. You know, I know Big Sam once mocked it as the West Ham way, but it is. I think it is. And I don't think it's necessarily the skill. I just think for the West Ham way, all that a West Ham lot ask for is quite a basic thing. It's just that have a go, you know what I mean? So like, you know, and that's why I think this team at the moment are doing, you know, everyone's so behind them. I mean, you know, we lost to we forgot, but we lost to Newcastle on Saturday 3-2. But the way we came back in the second half with 10 men, we lost the game, but still people were like, unlucky. You know, we had a good go, and you know, and that's what it is. And again, there's certain periods of West Ham's history where there's been that team, as you said, the era you were in was very much like that, you know, but you had the skill. And that's why I think, you know, when you compare, you can't compare Di Canio and Payet, but you know, Payet was probably maybe technically the best player I've ever seen, but Di Canio was my favorite player because he had that arrogance, he had the entertainment value as well, which you went back to, sort of that, you know, he was just
it played to the fans, and we'd all know that, and we'd sometimes roll our eyes and go, oh, Paolo, but he was our best player. And you know, I always had a good relationship with him. I liked him off the pitch as well. Just an amazing talent, and you know, there's not many times I'd use the word genius, but he was. He really was.
Exactly. And that's the team. Well, we don't have to worry about the big six with that team. We just got
that would get in the big six, that wouldn't it?
Yeah, the greedy six. Wouldn't even need that. We'll go straight to the Champions League. Lovely stuff. Scott, man, been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, man. It's been really fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed an hour. Sorry, what did you thought of it? An hour's flown by. So really, I appreciate all the time,
Russ,
man.
Been talking too much.
Oh, we love it, and we love the stories. But anyway, thank you so much, and obviously, thank you to everyone for watching. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Wash those hands. Get those jabs. You must have had your first one. Yeah.
I've had the text. I had COVID back in January.
Of course you did, yeah.
Yeah. Mild symptoms. Let me tell you, homeschooling and cooking solo was worse than COVID because the missus was in bed for 4 days. So I had to do that myself.
Homeschool, honestly, I've got so much respect for teachers and stuff. My daughter's 8 going on 18, and yeah. Although I do all the cooking anyway, so not really, it's the mother-in-law. Yeah, she moved in, you know, so But anyway,
We'll keep that one
she's
quiet.
gone away now. She's gone away now. She doesn't know how to get on YouTube, Scott. You can slag her off now. But anyway, take care, everyone. Stay safe. Wash those hands. Come on, you irons, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Much love. Bye-bye.